Chris and Shanann met in 2010 and married in 2012. They lived in Colorado and they had two little girls, Bella, who was 4 years old, and Celeste, who's 3 years old. They had a picture-perfect marriage. Shanann was very active on social media and posted videos all of the time of them as a family, singing, happy, joking around together. She even posted a video about how she and Chris met and how he slid into her DMs and friend requested her on Facebook years ago, how she didn't think anything of it, and then bam, now here they are and they're married and they have 2 kids. So really, from the outside, a perfect love story. But things aren't always what they seem, are they? On August 13th, 2018, Shanann returned home from a business trip in Arizona, and Chris was at home with the girls. It was a solo work trip for her, and she came home about 1:45 a.m. The next morning, a colleague of hers became concerned because Shanann had missed an OB appointment and she was 15 weeks pregnant. She also was failing to return any text messages, and this was very much unlike Shanann. So her friend went to Shanann's house at noon to check in to make sure everything's okay, maybe she overslept, and no answer. She ends up calling Chris, and before even asking Chris to notify the police, she just takes it upon herself because she knew it was so out of character for Shanann that she's like, no, I'm calling the police, something's going on here. At 1:40 p.m., an officer arrived to do a welfare check, and Chris was now back at the house at this point as well, and Chris allowed the officer to come in, search for information, see what he could find, anything to determine, okay, where is Shanann and our 2 little girls? None of the family was found, and police found her purse, her wedding ring, her car was there, which still had the girls' car seats in it, and her cell phone, which was in her purse. Very unlike her. Everything is showing that she should have been at the house because all of her belongings were still there and the girls' belongings. So where was this family? The next day, the FBI joined the investigation, and Chris gives this huge interview on the news, pleading for them to come home for their safe return, just an outpouring of love and support from the community, trying to find his pregnant wife and their 2 little girls.
Had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just ran over by the kids running in the door and just like barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here. I just want them to come back.
As the police are doing their investigation on the property and around the neighborhood, a neighbor comes out and says, you know what, I've actually got video cameras on my property. Do you want to come in and take a look? They're always recording and maybe I caught something. So officers are like, of course, yeah, let's go take a look. And Chris comes along as well because he of course wants to see what it is. As the officer, the neighbor, and Chris are inside the neighbor's house watching this footage, Chris's behavior starts to become very concerning. The footage shows Chris backing his truck up in the middle of the night into the garage, and he quickly starts getting fidgety, trying to explain it away, saying how there's been a string of break-ins recently, all of these things, but just his behavior, you can see he's just moving and twitching and he can't sit still. Once the footage is over, the officer and Chris go to leave the house, and the neighbor pulls the officer back and says, hey, he's not acting right, because the neighbor knew something was up with his behavior, and he said he's usually cool, calm, collected. He isn't acting right. Something's up.
His info real quick. No.
Which immediately, of course, piqued the interest of the police officers. The police bring Chris in for questioning, which they so often do with spouses.